right now, and it seems like for the last 6 months, that's been 100% Utah Jazz basketball. And that's why we bring it up so much. That's why we talk so much Utah Jazz on the show, because the headline dictates that, the news cycle dictates that, and the ridiculous rumors about Donovan Mitchell, Utah Jazz stud, Donovan Mitchell, to just about every other NBA franchise is crazy. Is Utah Jazz star Donovan Mitchell going to the Miami Heat? Is Utah Jazz star Donovan Mitchell being traded to the Miami Heat? Those headlines permeated our Twitter feeds this weekend.
Permeated.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
And it feels ridiculous to me. And if you saw the picture, I tweeted it. It's another one of these stupid Twitter accounts that tweets out rumors that are baseless. And Chris Brickley, the renowned skills coach who we've talked about so much on this show, that works with Utah Jazz star Donovan Mitchell on a regular basis, had his birthday party this weekend. And Chris Brickley happens to work with the biggest names in the NBA, including Utah Jazz star Donovan Mitchell and Miami Heat star Jimmy Butler.
Mm-hmm.
They were photographed with Chris Brickley at his birthday party, and a bunch of, and I can only say short-sighted, ridiculous, idiotic people freaked out and said, oh, this is another sign Donovan's going to the Miami Heat. I got like 5 or 6 DMs. Hey, Monty, do you think this means that Utah Jazz star Donovan Spider Mitchell is going to the Miami Heat?
Hey, guys.
Stop. This was a birthday party. So Donovan Mitchell went to a birthday party with Cheryl Teagues, the model for Playboy. Is Donovan Mitchell getting traded to the Playboy Mansion? Like, that's the ridiculous level that we go to. And I know that I probably sound like a jerk when I'm saying that, Jake, but I am just so over all of the clickbait and the ridiculousness that is going on with the Utah Jazz and Donovan Mitchell.
Yeah, what's really funny about this whole Donovan Mitchell situation, and really even the Steph Curry situation with that conversation that we're going to get to, what we like to do in sports, and seemingly it happens a ton in basketball specifically, is we want to, get ahead of the conversation. We want to say, because Don is wearing a hat that said something like, a better world is coming or whatever, that was some sort of an inference to, hey, I'm going to go to the Miami Heat and I'm tired of playing for the Utah Jazz and I'm tired of being the front man and the face of the organization or something like that, And I think it just gets to a point where some of it is that we're bored. Some of it is that as fans, we're thirsty for let's say a head coach hire. We're desiring new jerseys. We want more news. So we're thirsty. We're on Twitter constantly. We're obsessing over whether, the Utah Jazz are going to hire a good guy or a bad guy or whatever, So I think a lot of it is that we're in the summer and we're thirsty. But I do think I have to agree that this is so much of a reach. This is so much of a stretch. This is so much of a, hey, I saw one picture of Don sitting next to, Jimmy Butler and Chris Brickley. Now automatically he's playing in, Wade County. You know what I mean? And that's what I have trouble with. Donovan Mitchell's never said that he wants to leave the Utah Jazz. Donovan Mitchell never said that he was unhappy. And then people are going to immediately say to me, well, he was unnerved. That's what the report said. Yeah, but did you hear that from Donovan Mitchell? Did we get a statement directly from his camp saying that? No, we did not. What did we get? Donovan Mitchell out on some island trip with David Alexander working on his body, getting ready. Now what do we get? We get Donovan Mitchell with Chris Brickley and one of the best players in the world in Jimmy Butler, chomping it up over dinner. Like, that's what I'm saying. You guys have to understand that these guys are human beings. And this is what I always come back to. We treat these guys like they're machines. And that if they wear a hat that says something we don't like, that means that they're gonna force a trade or they don't want to be here.
Spider Mitchell's leaving the Utah Jazz.
Like, it's crazy to me. And
oh my God, he was photographed with one of the New York Jets, and he's going to play linebacker.
Yeah, he had dinner with Saquon Barkley.
Look at those thighs.
Yeah.
Why? The question is why? Why are we so thirsty for drama with the Utah Jazz? And I feel like that's where some of this lies and some of this starts, because I also think that Utah Jazz fans are a fan base that lives in pain and lives in drama. And why does it have to be like that? Is it because you haven't won a championship? Is it because that you are comparing Donovan Mitchell to Darren Williams? Is it because you're comparing Donovan Mitchell to Gordon Hayward, Carlos Boozer? Like, why can't we just judge Don based on what he says and does on the floor? Because ultimately, that's what matters most. What Donovan Mitchell says directly is what matters most. These idiotic Twitter accounts that tweet pictures and at birthday parties, to your point about these guys, they're just human beings.
Yeah.
I mean, Donovan Mitchell is just a human being. He's not a basketball player. He's a guy that plays basketball for a living, but he's also a Mets fan. He's also a New Yorker. He also has friends. He likes to travel. You see him in Miami. You see him in Connecticut. You see him in Utah. Like, why are we so unwilling especially with Jazz fans? And I think this is unique. Of all the teams I've covered, the fan base in Utah, whether it's for the Utah Utes, BYU, the Utah Jazz, certainly, there is a certain expectation that the fans will be victimized. And I don't understand that.
Yeah.
Why do you think so many people create clickbait on Twitter about the Utah Jazz?
Well, and specifically Donovan Mitchell, because I
Yeah.
think this is the question. Like, I think Donovan Mitchell is somebody who nationally is not quite understood fully. And I think locally, Jazz fans are like, hey, this guy wants to leave, get his ass out of here. And he's never said that. And that's what's unbelievable to me. And I also think, or I also wonder, like, is part of the fan base's, vitriol or like moments of anger with Donovan Mitchell, is part of that you don't believe in him, or that you don't think that he can take you to where you want to go? Because it has to be some of it. Because if you take it at face value, if we stop doing the conspiracy theory stuff and we stop reaching to Area 51 for thoughts on where Donovan Mitchell is going to play basketball, if we just take it at face value, what has he done? Okay, you got bounced from the playoffs in not a good fashion for you as a player. You didn't play well, in my opinion.
Repeatedly.
And then the offseason begins. And what do we get? We get him working on his body, understanding that he has to be better. So he goes to the islands, he gets away from basketball, he puts work into his body. Now what are we going to get? Well, we're going to get, hey, I need to link up with Brickley. And hey, by the way, Jimmy's going to be there because me and Jimmy are buddies. We're going to have dinner. And then how much you want to bet that we're going to get in the next 2 to 3 weeks? Donovan Mitchell's going to be in New York with Brickley. Because the Black Ops runs are coming. The runs that Brickley puts together for NBA players. Those runs are coming later in the year. So Don is working on himself. Don is getting better. That's my point. If you just take it at face value, there's nothing that could be more further from the truth than hey, he's leaving to go to Miami. That's where I'm like, okay, you guys are just reaching. So when I look at Don, I'm happy with what he's doing. I'm happy with the fact that he's largely stayed out of the drama. I think a lot of this is just manufactured by as you said, like troller Twitter accounts and like guys like, again, with all due respect to Sean O'Connell, that whole him or me thing that Don got tied up in with Rudy and all that. Don had nothing to do with that. And that's where I kind of get tired of Don just being roped into this stuff.
Yeah, I think it's easy to lasso Jazz fans into it.
Yeah.
Utah Jazz fans love being victims.
Yeah.
And I think you just got to stop. I mean, if you're the guy that is just sitting up on Twitter being like, oh man, look at this rumor and look at that. What was the Rudy Gobert rumor you brought up this morning?
So there's a rumor going around that Rudy Gobert, air quotes, a possible trade scenario for Rudy Gobert to the Nets for Claxton and Ben Simmons. And my whole thing with that is, hey, maybe the financials do work on that. I didn't have time to, or energy, or effort, or
Ben
want to.
Ben Simmons is making a crazy amount of money.
Like, I didn't want to, yeah, but so is somebody named Rudy Gobert. So the money probably does work, honestly.
Right, but that doesn't fix your problem.
Precisely.
It does. You are going. If you made that trade, you would be a repeat offender of the salary cap.
However,
Come on.
and again, we should really save this conversation for later in the week because, as we know, we're going to need it.
They're making
honestly.
the same money, man.
My point with this is just that the reason I brought that up is because it's the same type of thing. here's my point. We're going to get to Danny Ainge in a minute. This front office and Danny Ainge, once they hire a head coach, they're going to get into deals and making things happen. And I'm sure they're having the conversations and they're trying to put something together. But I just don't see a world where Kevin Durant wants to have a cumbersome center on his team, especially someone who's a starter. I just don't see. That's not how Kevin Durant. Look at all the places Kevin Durant's ever played. Even go all the way back to Oklahoma City. Who did he have in the middle? He had Serge Ibaka, a mobile big.
Excuse me. It's Serge Ibaka,
yeah,
please.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. So, so my point just is like all of this stuff, like as a Jazz fan, my advice to you is to not go down the rabbit hole right away. Oh my God, one picture of Don sitting at a table with another NBA player and a skills coach. If I said that to you, hey, this is a picture of, the star of the Utah Jazz, Donovan Mitchell, and he's just sitting at a table with another NBA guy and a trainer. Would you say that he wants a trade and he's asking out?
What if that was Lou Dort, who was also at that party, by the way? What if Donovan Mitchell and Lou Dort were photographed with Chris Brickley? Would you be like, oh, Don's he's leaving the Utah Jazz for the Oklahoma City Thunder.
He's trying to go play with SGA.
He wants to go to the Thunder. You wouldn't, though, would you?
You're casual.
Like, it's so ridiculous. Anyway.
So my point just is to wrap that up, because we do need to move on, but like, just be careful, man. Don't just assume that Donovan Mitchell wants out, because I don't think that.
I think you got to stop with the everybody hates Salt Lake City, nobody's coming here, everybody leaves. Like, you got to stop with that, because it may be true in different situations. It's not true in Donovan Mitchell's situation. We've been telling you that for months. Like, he's never asked for a trade. He's never demanded a trade to the Knicks.
Yeah.
I love how it was the Knicks or bust for Donovan Mitchell. And now it's the Knicks or the Heat or whatever team I can think of. Just stop.
Yeah.
Like, don't allow yourself.
Continues.
Yeah, don't allow yourself to fall into that. Really, seriously. All right, a couple of comments on this, because then I want to get to this Danny Ainge interview. James Knight, good morning to you. He says, "Sup, lads." Sup, James.
James, only one question for you, bud.
Uh-huh.
Where's the 4X gold?
Yeah, we still haven't gotten our 4X gold
Where
that you owe us like 10 times over.
Oh, shit.
Oh,
Yeah,
come on,
James.
Dante May, good morning too. He says, "Good morning. Did you see the tweet about the new uniforms having a lot of purple, hello, and white?" I don't know what color hello is. It's funny. I was talking to one of the Jazz guys that I talk to pretty regularly, and he claims that they have made some adjustments, that they have. That this delay in releasing the uniforms was intentional to give them a chance to adjust and to give them a chance to kind of take the temperature of the water.
Because it's all part of the plan.
We'll see. I don't believe anything until the Jazz release the uniforms themselves. Yeah. I don't. Yeah. I'm not going to buy into it. I'm not. Those uniforms that we've been seeing pictures of are real. And as we've told you now for a couple of weeks, they wanted to release those uniforms during the playoffs, but the first round exit made that impossible. So I think they are going to wait until the finals are over. I think that you could get that as soon as Thursday or Friday, depending on what happens with the finals. You get Game 5 tonight, and then possibly you get an end to the series on Wednesday. But yeah, I think that they have significantly altered their plan to release these uniforms.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what they should be doing. Tanner Plummer, good morning to you. He says, quote unquote, permeated. LOL. Is that even a word? Yes, permeated is a word.
Permeated is a word, guy.
You're college educated, bro.
Come on.
I think the reason why people keep being wrapped up in these alleged rumors is because they have no idea what's going on with the Jazz. They don't have connections within the organization like you guys do. But that's why you rely on media members that you trust and have a track record. And everybody has somebody that they believe in. And whether that's us or Tony Jones, I would caution you, it's us or Tony Jones. I think that we have been pretty consistently on the spot with our Jazz stuff for you. I would just caution you, like tweets from NBA Central.
Yeah.
Why? Why fall into that vat of death?
Dangerous misinformation.
I just wouldn't do it. Giggity, what's up with you? Neville93 says, good morning, guys. What is everybody crying about now? Is it always Jazz fans?
Yeah, casual.
I love how that was phrased. What is everybody crying about now?
Yeah, Jazz fans and victimhood go hand in hand. I agree, Mike.
Come on, man.
Very true. Ryan Buckley, good morning to you. Mitchell Harding, hey, what's up, man? Good to see you. He says, yeah, here we go with the you guys are casual guys coming in, fellas. Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
Jeremy Bolton says, whoa, look who's back. Jeremy Bolton.
Well.
Buys a new car all cash. Don't have time for the Monty show anymore.
Yeah, I guess not.
Yeah, good to see you, I guess.
Yeah.
We're on to Cincinnati.
Yeah, we get it, bro. We get it. You've moved on.
Right? What's wrong? The Hyundai Kia Veloster thing, SUV stuff that you bought doesn't have Wi-Fi enabled Bluetooth YouTubing stuff?
Yeah.
Anyway, Jeremy Bolton says, whoa, guess who's back? Back again. What's up, everyone? Good to see you, Jeremy. I'm glad you're here. Tanner says the Jazz fan base is one of the most gullible fan bases in sports. I don't know about gullible. I think the Jazz fan base is emotional.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of tragedy in this fan base.
Listen, would you not be emotional if the last time you were truly relevant in the league before this current core of guys was around was what, 20 years ago, 15 years ago at the earliest?
Yeah.
Like, it's been a while. Like, I think that the trouble is that you went. I was over the weekend. I was looking at like just trying to gain a respect for how long Quin had been here, and how long Rudy and Don and all these guys have been together. It's been a long time. And I think that we forget about that. Like, I think we lose, not intentionally. It's not a choice we're making. I think it's just what happens. We lose an appreciation for just how damn long these guys have played together. Like I understand why Donovan Mitchell or even Rudy. I mean, Rudy's agent straight up told us that he would be open to a trade scenario. Not that he's asking for one, but he's open to one. And I understand that, bro.
And what we've reported for 6 weeks now is that Rudy Gobert has told the Jazz that he wants to be here, but that he feels like he's a scapegoat for the defense. He feels like he's not valued on offense, and that he would be open to relocating to another NBA city.
Yeah.
Not that he's demanding a trade, not that he even wants a trade, but he is open to the idea that maybe what's best for him and the Jazz is that he get traded. Yep. And I think that when you get paid the way Rudy Gobert got paid, that a trade is in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, you either put up and you win right away, or you become an albatross with that contract. And I think that's just the harsh reality of it, and that's why the Ben Simmons rumor is so ridiculous.
Yeah.
The dereliction of duty that it would take to acquire Ben Simmons right now, with all of his injury issues, with all of his battles that he has fought so publicly with mental health, that the Nets have supported him on, to bring him in with all of those issues, with all of the money that he makes the same money that Rudy makes, would be an absolute dereliction of duty for Danny Ainge.
Yeah.
And it makes very little basketball sense. Ben Simmons, before he has any tangible trade value, would have to show that he can still play basketball on a consistent basis at a very high level.
Yeah.
He's not shown that for over a year. He hasn't played an NBA game in over a calendar year.
Crazy.
You can't make that deal. So going down the rabbit hole of Ben Simmons to the Jazz just makes no sense. It makes no sense. And I think Danny Ainge is a much better steward of Utah Jazz basketball than that. I truly do.
Yeah.
Speaking of Danny Ainge, I want to play some of this sound. He did an interview with the Utah Jazz website last week, and this here particular soundbite that we're going to play, where Danny Ainge talks about the Utah Jazz and the attractiveness of the Utah Jazz as an organization.
I think there's a little bit of uncertainty of what direction the franchise is going to go right now. And so there might be some hesitancy, but I don't think, based on the first 24 hours after Quin stepped down, there's a lot of interest there are many, many coaches out there that would die to have this job.
Boy, that gives you a little pause. Danny Ainge from UtahJazz.com.
Yeah.
That gives you a little bit. Just play the first 5 seconds again. Listen to what he says about uncertainty with direction.
I think there's a little bit of uncertainty of what direction the franchise is going to go.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the best thing you want to hear from your president of basketball operations.
What I will say, I agree with that. I mean, it's not great to hear Danny say that, but what I will say, and this kind of goes back to, the exit press conference that Quin and Ryan and Danny had. I really appreciate when the media and organizations are blunt about things and honest about things. And I think Danny is being honest. Like, I think Danny understands that, hey, Quin Snyder is a very much is a respected head coach in this league. And anytime a respected head coach steps down, the next guy that you're going to hire, or the candidates that you might bring in, or the people who might consider, coaching the Utah Jazz, yeah, there's going to be some hesitancy because you want to know, well, why did Quin step down? In what direction are we going?
But do you have to so blatantly? You're the CEO of the Utah Jazz.
Yeah,
do you have to so blatantly say, like, yeah, there's some question about the direction?
I think there's a little bit of uncertainty of what direction the franchise is going to go right now.
What? I don't want to hear that from Danny Ainge.
I don't want to hear it either, but I have to say, I'd rather him be honest than give me coach talk, which, by the way, I have to give Danny Ainge a lot of credit. He did a ton of coach talk in this interview, and he is really good at it.
He did, and Danny's no rookie. Danny knows how to go about answering questions. And if you listen to him here talk about, what is the timeline for hiring a head coach?
It was about 6 weeks in the process of hiring Quin, and I think we're in a similar boat. We have a lot of staff that's under contract that, is getting an opportunity to do more. I think Alex is going to run our summer league and will run all the workouts for that. And so I think we're in really good shape right now. So I think we can take our time. And
are you at all surprised? Because what that says to me is what we talked about last week on the show.
Yeah.
Alex Jensen is a candidate out of respect.
Yeah.
Alex Jensen is not a candidate that they're seriously looking at to be their next head coach.
Yeah.
So I think when you look at who they're talking to, I think that they are broadening this list quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Frank Vogel is a really nice interview. Terry Stotts is a really nice interview.
Well, I thought you made a great point when we first talked about this, that not everybody they're hiring, or I'm sorry, not everybody that they're interviewing with the intent to hire that person for the head coaching slot. I think, to your point, I think if you could lock up, as an example, like a Frank Vogel or someone who's got a lot of experience in the league and can bring a ton of value as like a lead assistant, that's really valuable. And that's why I say, a lot of the shows in Salt Lake over the past 10 days or so have been talking about the fact that the Jazz are interviewing essentially everybody under the sun, it seems. And I'm with you. I think that's the right way to go about it.
Absolutely.
Why would you not? Why would you not have the conversation?
How is that at all a negative?
Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're bringing in guys that know your team. And at the very minimum, you're going to ask them, hey, what do you think of our club? What do you think of our players? How would you use Donovan Mitchell? What do you think of Don's game? You're trying to get intelligence from them on how the rest of the league views your team and your players.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're also knowing, and it is my firm belief and what sources have told me for 2 weeks now, going back to when we were reporting that, hey, Quin's going to resign, there's a good chance he's going to resign.
Yeah.
Going back through that period, they're going to hire a young assistant, and I think they're going to hire Johnny Bryant's the guy, but I think their preference would be to hire a diverse candidate, which tells me a young candidate that is black, that is a candidate that says the right things, fits into their vision, and can meld this roster into a continuation of Quin's work, but take it to a higher level.
Yeah.
And then you integrate their, hey, I'm going to make this deal, or we're thinking about changing this guy and that guy, and you're bringing in a coach that you can plug into the roster that you envision here and play a style of basketball that you want your team playing. Because one of the things that you get when you keep a guy like Quin Snyder as your head coach is you're playing his system.
Yep.
Because he's an established veteran head coach who's taken into the playoffs pretty much every year he's been here.
The last 6 seasons.
Yeah, I mean, that's his style. But what you're doing now by hiring a young coach is you are hiring a guy that you can mold and you can grow and you can develop, and who will play a style that you approve of. that you bring in players to fit a system. And I can almost guarantee you this team's going to play much faster next year. They're going to continue to shoot threes, and they are going to be much, much, much more reliant on pick and pop and 3-and-D guys.
Yeah.
They're not going to be reliant on high pick and roll, lob a dunk to Rudy. And I think that's why you want to have all of these voices coming in. I would not be surprised if you see that Mike D'Antoni's going to interview with the Utah Jazz.
Yeah,
I
think
would
you have to.
I would not be surprised by that. The biggest issue, in my opinion, when you hire a Johnny Bryan as your head coach or whoever you want to point to
Charles
here.
Lee.
Charles Lee got a promotion, oddly enough. And one of the things you also worry about when you interview guys like Charles Lee is, well, Charles, okay, we're going to interview you. And Charles is going to use that interview as leverage to become the associate head coach of the Milwaukee Bucks and get an extension.
Yep.
So is Charles Lee still a candidate to be the head coach of the Jazz? I would think he is. But his situation got a lot more secure with the Milwaukee Bucks thanks to the Utah Jazz.
Yep.
So I just think this is a larger process. I think Johnny Bryan is still your number one candidate, and I have no problem with 6 weeks being the timeline. But I also think that Danny Ainge is doing a great job handling this process so far. For the first foray of Danny Ainge really having his hands on something of tangible value, a coaching search.
Yeah.
That Danny didn't handle the trade deadline. That was not his baby.
I will say, not to cut you off, I think they did a poor job of expressing that, like, to the fan base. Not to say they need to come out and say, hey, Danny's not controlling the trade deadline.
Yeah.
But we didn't get anything about, like, who was, like, Justin Zanuck's role and, like, kind of how the dynamic was
We haven't gotten
playing.
any description of what Danny Ainge is doing for a living until the resignation of Quin Snyder.
Yeah.
And from that, really from, I don't know, when the season ended, I would say forward.
Yeah.
Now you kind of understand that Danny Ainge is running basketball operations. He is truly fully involved, fully onboarded as the CEO of the Utah Jazz.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're seeing that he's so involved. And by the way, it's no accident that Danny Ainge sat down and did a one-on-one interview with Utah Jazz, the Utah Jazz website.
Yes.
That was no accident. And I think it was really well done. It was really well scripted. His answers were put together ahead of time. The questions were put together ahead of time. It was handled how you would expect it to be handled.
Well executed.
Note it wasn't Ryan Smith, because Ryan Smith, in my opinion, has to be really careful with how public-facing he is.
Yeah.
Danny Ainge is the face of Utah Jazz basketball today.
Yeah.
As he should be. And when you hire a new head coach, that head coach becomes the face of the Utah Jazz. That when you put a roster together and you trade Rudy Gobert and you bring in whoever you're bringing in, that core group of players becomes the face of the Utah Jazz. And more to the point, it elevates Donovan Mitchell to the singular alpha male of the Utah Jazz locker room. That's what you're seeing. That's what you're watching, the evolution of this Utah Jazz organization. So it'll be interesting, but I think that was very well handled. Nothing in that interview was shocking. Nothing in that interview was new. Nothing in that interview was at all surprising, even
earth-shattering.
Nothing. This was
making.
This was an attempt, and a very good attempt, and a well-executed attempt by the Jazz to kind of shift the news cycle.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those things where you have to figure out now what is going to happen going forward, because I think Danny Ainge is very good as a spokesperson. And I think Danny Ainge is the exact right guy to be put in that position. So
totally,
I liked what I heard in that interview. Jeremy Bolton says, Vegas was calling my name, you casuals. Made some cheddar cheese. Oh, good. I'm glad to hear.
Casual.
Glad to hear you walked out of there.
What's your favorite game in Vegas? What do you just put bets on teams, or like what do you like to do?
You don't do anything, so I don't think you're qualified to have this conversation.
I'm not a gambler, but I'm just curious what people like to do, man.
You won't even put money on in the sports book.
Nope.
It's ridiculous.
We got too many other things happening that I'm not able to speak on.
But even when we
time.
didn't have too many things happening, you wouldn't do it.
I don't know what you're talking about, bro.
Whatever.
I can't confirm or deny these reports.
What's up, Dane? Good to see you. Robert Smith says, good morning from LA. Good morning, Robert. Good to see you. Tanner says, well, considering how the Jazz continue to take L's on and off the court, I understand why Ainge is being blunt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, are they taking L's on and off the court?
I don't necessarily agree they're taking L's on it. I mean, yeah, they lost. Obviously, they lost. So I mean, there's no getting away from that.
But I don't necessarily believe that losing Quin Snyder has to be a loss.
Yeah, I don't think it was either. And I think that, everything, I mean, it came straight from Quin's mouth that it was just time. I mean, Danny referenced that in this interview a couple of times, and like, you've heard Ryan Smith talk about it. Like, again, this is what I would say. Go on YouTube and just like do a search for like Quin Snyder or Utah Jazz highlights or something around Quin. You're going to get videos from like 9 years ago, bro. Like, it's been a long time that he's been here. And I understand that it's never great to lose a head coach like Quin, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think it needs to be categorized as an L. I think it needs to be categorized as, hey, this is the end of an era in Utah Jazz basketball, and it's time to start a new one. And I think, frankly, for Donovan Mitchell to thrive and for this team to go where you want it to go, that needed to happen. Honestly, like whether it was Quin going or a Rudy trade, or there had to be a major piece to this puzzle that changed and ultimately changed a couple of pieces. So I don't think it was an L, but that's just me.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, it's really a matter of who they hire and who they trade for.
Yeah.
And who's here and who's not. I mean, again, if you look at the likely trade scenarios, I still maintain that Rudy to Toronto, Chicago, or Atlanta are, is if he gets moved, I think it'll be to one of those three teams. I think it's all about what you get in return. I will again say it makes almost no sense for the Jazz to trade for, in Chicago, Vucevic and somebody else.
Yeah.
That doesn't make a lot of sense. Because you're not getting Ayo Dosunmu from the Bulls.
Yeah.
You're just not. Like, I look at the Toronto Raptors. Do you truly think that they're going to trade their best, youngest players to you in return for Rudy Gobert? I don't. I think you're going to have to take on Pascal Siakam's contract. I think
that's not what we're about.
I mean, it depends on how much they value or how married to Pascal Siakam they are, but you need a legit wing player who can defend.
Yeah.
And that's probably more OG Anunoby. Are they willing to trade, multiple young wing players to get Rudy Gobert? I don't know. I think in Atlanta, I mean, I think you would have to take back Clint Capella's contract.
Yep.
And I think he's got 3 years left, around $20 million a year. You could do that, but who else are you going to get back in return? I'd much more rather have John Collins than Clint Capella.
Yep.
I don't know.
The Hawks want to move John Collins too.
Yeah, are they going to give you DeAndre Hunter? I don't know.
Be nice.
So it just depends. It's not a loss. Quin Snyder's not a loss if you bring in a Johnny Bryant and you trade Rudy Gobert. And you wind up with a Vucevic, Devontae Green, and an Ayo Dosunmu.
Yeah.
Is that likely to happen? No, it's probably not likely to happen.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of what you turn guys into. Again, I would simply ask, are you turning Bojan Bogdanovic into Tyler Hero? Maybe we can have that discussion. Are you moving Bojan Bogdanovic to a Eastern Conference contender? I wouldn't mind trading Bojan Bogdanovic to any other team in the NBA. Just tell me what we're getting in return.
Yeah. And that's always what it is too, I feel like. It's never what, and I guess this is the old adage, it's not about, getting knocked down, it's about how you get back up. Like, it's not about Quin leaving, it's about what you do with what you have now and how you shape, what this team's going to be. And that's why I say, like, whether, because if you're just tuning in, we started the show by talking about, the fact that, Donovan Mitchell was at this table with Jimmy Butler and Chris Brickley, and everyone was like, oh, he's going to leave the Utah Jazz. And whether
he's going from the Utah Jazz to the Miami Heat.
Because he's at a table with Jimmy Butler.
Because of this one photo, that certainly must mean.
Yeah.
3/4 of this is inaccurate.
Yeah, I think it's just, my point just is that whether it's Quin or Don or Rudy or whatever, I think we just got to be careful with how far we go down the rabbit hole, and we need to be patient and let Danny paint the picture, because that's what he does.
Yep. Jeremy Bolton says, played some craps, some blackjack. Couldn't play as much as I wanted because was with the family, but played a little. Man, the best crap story I can tell you is, again, me, Will Smith, and Ben Napoleon Wilson in Vegas, and Ben Wilson is just destroying the craps table, winning ungodly sums of money.
Right.
And watching Ben Wilson be as hot as one could ever be playing craps at the Palms was amazing. Like,
Good times at the Palms, man.
yeah, Ben
Good
Wilson
times.
taught me how to play craps at the Palms.
Yeah.
I lost an F ton of money. He won an F ton of money. It
Yeah.
was remarkable. It was remarkable. It was one of the greatest trips to Las Vegas ever. I believe that's the same trip I threw up all over the bathroom rotunda
Yep.
at the Palms as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
Could be
Yep.
wrong. Rudy
Yep.
Sanchez says, morning fellas, change can be good for everyone even if it's uncomfortable at first. Absolutely. Because I'm a big believer, whether you're in sales or you polish widgets for a living, that getting out of your comfort zone is where your growth is, and doing things that you're not wanting to do, but you do them because you know they're the right thing to do. Trading Rudy Gobert is not necessarily something that you want to do, but it's the right thing for this team to do. It's absolutely the right thing for this team to do. You cannot continue to pay the luxury tax, because don't forget, you get hard capped when you're a repeat violator of the luxury tax.
Yeah.
When you get to that apron and I'm telling you, it's not the right way to do business. So you don't want to necessarily give up a talent like Rudy Gobert, but you have to.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see. Let's see. Jesus Christ destroys atheism.
Nice name.
Okay. I've seen some different trade proposals, and one of them that sounds legit. They're talking about Rudy to Atlanta for Capella, as well as DeAndre Hunter, who they really like, and one other player. Well, I mean, again, not to be redundant, we just talked about that, and we've talked about it for the last couple of weeks. DeAndre Hunter is a guy that you have to have if you're going to make a deal with Atlanta.
Yes.
I mean, the John Collins, Clint Capella piece is not the starter. That's the cherry on top. I am telling you now, DeAndre Hunter is the minimum requirement in a trade with Atlanta. And Atlanta's going to be reticent to give him up. As they should be, because he is the thing that I like about Hunter is he's a defender. The guy you can put him on the Jimmy Butlers. You can put it like Luka. How different is the Jazz series if the Jazz have DeAndre Hunter guarding Luka Doncic?
Very different.
Very different.
Can't take advantage of Rudy at that point.
Right? So my point is, I think you are in a position where, and that's a really good point. If you have John Collins and DeAndre Hunter instead of Rudy Gobert, if you have that and you pick and roll, John Collins is more capable of defending the 3-point line than Rudy Gobert is.
Yeah.
Which in today's NBA is a prerequisite. Let's see. Rudy said, whoa, hey, comment. Jackson Graham, good morning to you. Jazz aren't in a spot to make big moves. We don't have assets that are on contracts that make sense. Well, I think Rudy Gobert has tremendous value around this league. I mean, and this is another one of those things. I was talking to a radio host in another city who called me and was like, hey, man, what is the truth about Rudy Gobert? The truth about Rudy Gobert is he's got tremendous value around this league. Toronto values him, and I can tell you, I know a ton of people in Chicago who all tell me the Bulls would love to get their hands on Rudy Gobert.
Yeah.
Because they're a team that is not currently playing basketball because they can't defend. And Rudy Gobert makes DeMar DeRozan, he makes Zach LaVine, he makes Ayo Dosunmu, he makes Devontae Green, he makes every one of those players a better player.
Yeah.
A better defensive player.
Yeah.
So they would love to have him. Do the Jazz have draft staff assets? They do not. Do the Jazz have young players? They do not. But what they have is guys who can be the cherry on top of a championship equation.
Yeah.
And I think certainly Bojan Bogdanović is that guy. There are three particular teams in, I think, Dallas, the Lakers, and the New York Knicks that would love to have Mike Conley on their roster.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mike Conley's got a little bit of value. Bojan Bogdanović has significant value, and Rudy Gobert has tremendous value around the league. But note that not one team is going to take all three of those players and hope to win with them on their roster together.
Yep.
That's the issue. Individually, you plug those guys into different teams, and they have tremendous value. Together on this Utah Jazz roster, they don't. And that's just the equation of professional basketball.
Yep.
So I would disagree with you, Jackson, that they don't have the ability to make trades. The Jazz have the ability to make trades. it's difficult to make a trade at the trade deadline
Mhm.
in the situation that the Jazz are in. It's difficult to not trade Joe Ingles in the situation that the Jazz were in. They just traded Joe too soon. I think that contract could have netted them more.
Yeah.
It could have netted them more. The issue becomes, what are you willing to do to make a trade in the summer when free agency begins? Whose sign and trade deal are you willing to be a third team in to maybe offload some of your lower level talent, right? What are you willing to do to trade Rudy Gobert? How much value do you need in return? Because he's got tremendous value. He's not a guy that you are desperate to trade for just any bag of basketballs.
Well, and you can't afford to trade him for any bag of basketballs.
Yeah,
That's the
I
thing.
mean, and this is the conversation we've had so often on the show. If you trade Bogey, Conley, Rudy Gobert, like Rudy Gobert is specifically, people are like, oh, you're going to be terrible without him defensively. Do you think they're not going to get bodies in return? The guy is making on average $41 million a year. I think he carries a $35 million cap hit.
Mhm.
You're going to get value in return. If you trade Rudy Gobert, the numbers have to work. So let's not sit here and pretend that you're getting nothing in return for Rudy Gobert, because you are.
Yeah.
You are. And you need to understand that. Let's see. Tanner Plummer says, when I say Jazz are taking L's off the court, I mean, nobody respects the Jazz and people like to roast them on TV and in social media. I mean,
Wow.
look, is there a respect factor at play with the Jazz? Yeah, because you haven't earned anybody's respect. Yeah, you've collapsed in the playoffs 3 straight years. You lost series that you should have probably won 3 straight years. And you paid a ridiculous contract to Rudy Gobert. I think Jazz fans have come around on that. There's nobody in the NBA who thought that was a good deal.
Mhm.
There's nobody who would have. I think Dennis Lindsey is one of the few executives who would have given Rudy Gobert that deal. And the limitation on this team has always been their ability to look forward, to project the impact of moves they're making, not for the present, but into the future in the next 3 years. And that Rudy Gobert contract cut you off at the knees.
Yeah.
And then the re-signing of Mike Conley damaged you. I mean, you've made some really bad financial decisions. So, I mean, that's been your respect issue. James Knight says, do the Jazz retain Rudy Gay? Well, now that Quin's gone, I think it's a far more possible scenario.
Fluid situation.
But Rudy Gay was so limited. His ability he never developed small ball. He was never able to fit into a smaller lineup. And I think Quin showed you the last 6 weeks of the season, including the playoffs. He was trying to find lineups to get Rudy off the floor and just was not able to do that. And I think Eric Paschall played some really important minutes in that Dallas series. But again, you're asking a guy who has a 4-cylinder to run a drag race against a V10. Like, that's not going to go well.